and welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker, a comedian, and their fabulous guests just slam dunk home runs all the way through the 80s movies we think we love or might have missed with these our modern grown-up eyes. And today we are talking about The Natural, a movie selection from 1984.
Someday when people look at me, they'll say, there goes Roy Hobbs, the best there ever was.
TriStar Pictures presents Robert Redford in The Natural, the story of a father and a son.
You got a gift, Roy, but it's not enough.
Of love.
He means the world to me.
And desire.
I'm not waiting for true love to come along, Roy.
A champion.
Roy Hobbs comes along once, maybe twice in everybody's lifetime.
And his destiny.
With or without the records, they'll remember you.
Best there is now, and best there ever will be.
I wouldn't bet against me.
I already have.
Robert Redford, Robert Duvall, Glenn Close, Kim Basinger, Wilford Brimley, Barbara Hershey, Robert Prosky, and Richard Farnsworth as Red. The Natural.
What is with that electronic score? It does not appear in the movie. They made it just for the trailer.
There's elements, like there's a few cues in the movie that are like, oh, that's a keyboard, but yeah, no, not for the most part. No.
And it's that like ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-bum. Like that's either from a million other trailers or I've just like heard it a bunch before, but it's like standard trailer sounds.
Well, it's full on the actual music in the movie, but they've converted it into, it's almost like this. They took the score from the video game version of the movie. Like, ooh, this is all we got.
Chrissy, I will say that that music has been copped for like a lot of gags over the years. I think it's like the Chariots of Fire music. It just became like the iconic, like, oh, it's a huge giant sports moment music.
Yeah, I've heard it a million times, but I've never seen this movie. I watched this movie for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
So the voices that you're hearing are, of course, the voice you'll probably recognize is filmmaker Nathan Blackwell.
Oh, hi there.
But that new voice is
a replacement voice.
Yeah, I'm still working on it.
I got the bad news.
We have a bonus filmmaker with us today. Josh Castleman.
Oh, I'm here too.
Yes, and filmmaker, producer, doer of all things filmmaking. And you picked this movie.
I did. The Natural was actually. It's kind of like a big deal to me in the 80s. So, and I will say I have not watched it in decades. I think with like many 80s movies, like there are things that maybe, as you guys have experienced over and over again, things that are different than what we remember, and things that are very much the same. So,
yeah, it's weird because it's like in your DNA. Like you, at some point. You know how like kids rewatch movies, you like program it into your DNA to where you even remember like sound effects
big time. Oh yeah.
Specific shots, things. It is so familiar, but then there's so many things that you didn't pick up as a kid.
Yeah. I think for me it was the some of just like throwaway lines, just things mumbled under their characters' breaths, or just like the smallest, but like little, like those tiny little details, like words that just really kind of stuck with me over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so strange. This movie also was a big deal when I was a kid.
Okay, so this is a movie from the 80s that takes place in the 30s, where a guy who's supposed to be in his 30s is being played by someone who's almost 50, which is exciting. It's an exciting game of math.
Right.
And
To make it more exciting, he plays both. I mean, in the 30s, he's actually supposed to be a teenager, and then I think it's the
it's like
right or
$1939.
Yeah.
is that when that's when the major league stuff is 1939?
Yeah,
So then the earlier stuff is supposed to be 1923, and
right.
he's supposed to be, and he and Glenn Close are both playing teenagers, and he's 47
Yep.
playing
Mhm.
18, and she's like 37 or 38 playing 18.
Yeah.
So
And he has like old man hands that they make no effort to hide. It's like get a hand double in there, and like maybe they have young hands is all
Yeah,
I'm saying.
this is way before they would have just digitally de-aged them, but I felt like there were so many kind of buy-ins like that. It almost like a holdover from it's like a continuation of theater to where you okay, we get that he looks a little older, but we're buying into the fact that he's a teenager. At least you're
Right.
underlighting all the shots, you
Well, it's
know?
like, and the question then that I imagine the casting director would ask would be like, okay, I hear what you're saying. He's too old, but do you not want Robert Redford? And then you're like, no, 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 we want Robert Redford. He can play any age. Like, let
Yeah.
him. He can play any age. We do not care. We will take Robert Redford to play a teenager. Sounds great.
yeah,
Sounds terrific.
but I think that it's you don't see it that often, but when you do, it's like there's I think to jump mediums for a second, like Better Call Saul. They're
Mhm.
they're currently they're well the season that just wrapped up. They're how a decade older than the actors are a decade
Mm-hmm.
older playing younger than they were on Breaking Bad, and it's kind of like
Mhm.
I love it. I think it's refreshing. It's like, yeah, just lean into it. Like, they don't do much
Mhm.
to hide it. It's like, change a hairstyle, but like they're like we're all in on it. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
they respect the audience to enough to know like we can all suspend disbelief enough to
Yeah.
to buy into this, and I could.
And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is that the alternative of what if they did anything else would be so distracting.
Yeah,
Well,
like if they had a
absolutely.
different actor play. I mean,
Mhm.
they could, I mean, they could have had different actors playing the teenage versions of them, maybe, but
Mhm.
I would have been okay with that. But yeah, but
So this movie is about a baseballing man who in his young days like hangs out on a farm with his dad and his like girlfriend, and he's really good at baseball. This movie is like boring but in a cozy way. It's like boring in the way that I like, where it's like, really, I have to like watch this whole thing, but you're cozy, or like it's like a nice warm blanket of like playing baseball in a field in the 20s or something like that. um his dad dies, a tree gets struck by lightning, he turns it into a bat.
Yeah, it's very Superman-esque in some ways, it feels, but
Oh
maybe it's just the
mm,
farm. But so
mhm.
much of this movie, just to kind of put it out there, is a fairy tale. Like this
Right.
movie is mythos. It's not meant to be as literal as maybe some people walk into it expecting. It's very much kind of like a baseball fairy tale.
it's a baseball fairy tale comic book noir.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And who knew we needed all those genres mixed together? Yes, because, and I read that it's that the book that this is based on is like a parable, or like a retelling of the myth of Odysseus. Um,
Oh,
and like,
She does
okay,
mention Homer, yeah.
oh yeah,
and
the Barbara Hershey character mentions. Yeah, she asks him
do
if he's
you
familiar
even
with
read
Homer too.
Homer?
Uh,
Um, So that put me into a mind of like, oh brother, where art thou, as sort of being like
Mhm.
an approximation of the Odyssey, but there was not enough of the magic for me, because having not seen this movie before, I was like, okay, at what point did they reveal that like Glenn Close is a djinn, and like this is like all a wish somebody made or something? Because
Well, that would have been a pretty weird
oh,
turn.
I don't know. I was like, there's so much magic. Like, but at one point, a man who is sort of the bad guy runs through a wall under his own steam and dies.
Right. Bump Bailey. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is a moment that. So yeah, there's a handful of moments that stuck out to me as being as not really fitting well in the in the movie, and that's one of them, because it's that, and then it's followed with this sort of like lightly comedic newsreel bit
Mm-hmm.
about him dying and the team moving on, and it just comes stylistically, just feels like it comes from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Because if he's supposed to be an approximation of a character from the myth of Odysseus or the story of Odysseus that I'm supposed to recognize, that like falls through a wall and dies, like I'm not getting that. But they set him up as being this sort of rival for Roy Hobbs, and then he run like I rewound it twice because I was like, no, he didn't die. He ran through the wall and died.
It
Like,
was so funny. Yeah. Like,
what?
it was just suddenly, like news flash, emergency funeral held for
Yeah,
Bump Bailey. Clearly you don't read Homer, because that scene was totally in
a
the
word for word.
Odyssey.
It's been a
Yeah.
minute since I hit Odysseus up.
At least, yeah, I
Um,
expected them to at least change the name, but no, they didn't.
but it's like it's all like wish fulfillment. If something stands in his way, it's
Yeah, I
you
feel like
know
they kind of downplayed the any Homer, or I don't, what is this based off, the Odyssey?
Odysseus.
Odysseus? I
Yeah,
feel like they downplayed that aspect and upplayed it maybe with more kind of Americana, like
baseball.
Americana baseball, early American fairy tale magic, you
Right.
know? Like the heroes that you'd invent by looking at baseball cards and things like that.
I mean, is it maybe safe to say that the book was inspired by the Odyssey and the movie was inspired by the book, and something,
Yes.
and it
Yeah.
drops a few details in
Yeah,
translation,
and
maybe?
I don't feel like I needed more Odysseus references.
Right.
I felt like it was still like, because it's also been some time. Like, it's probably been 15, 20 years since I've seen the movie
Yeah, me
all the
too.
way through. Um,
It's great though. Like I did like all of those elements, but the most mysterious of all of them comes right at the beginning when and again, I never seen this. I did not know what to expect, and this came out of the blue to me because he's like going on a train to like maybe get his shot at the majors or whatever. And there's this whole thing where he has like the whammer, who's like a Babe Ruth approximation. They
mhm.
have like a little like, well, I bet you can't throw 3 pitches or whatever, which he does, and lets us know how good Roy Hobbs is. And he meets on the train this mysterious woman, Barbara Hershey. And so right before this, we see him say goodbye to Glenn Close. And he's like, I love you. I'll send for you. Like, things are going to be great for us. But the minute he gets on the train and a hot Barbara Hershey like crooks her finger at him, she's like, do you have a girl? And he's like, what? No, I've never heard of a girl. There's no such
Never.
thing as a Glenn Close and never has been. Robert Duvall drops this little tidbit as he's reading the paper of all of these athletes who have been murdered with silver bullets as though they are
Mhm.
werewolves. And so he's like, you know, uh, Barbara Hershey is like making eyes at him and invites him to her room where she is like dressed in a black bride's outfit and she shoots him and then jumps out a window. And I was like, hold up 1 second.
Is this a parable for sex?
What's
This was
happening?
exactly what it was like for me.
Yeah, she shoots him in the side. She doesn't shoot him very effectively. She shoots
Yeah.
him like in his like lower right abdomen. And
Yes.
then she just gives up on everything.
And
Yeah.
Lump jumps out the window because it seems like she was kind of on a mission, or she was like, I'm going to kill one guy from every sport, one football man, one baseball man, one hockey
Mhm.
guy, and then
Yeah.
I'm out the window.
I think silver bullets are expensive. It's possible she had run out of ammunition at that point, and it's like, oh well, I'm sure.
Can I ask, were you guys clear
Yeah.
that she, in that moment, were you clear that she had committed suicide, that she had jumped out the window, or was
Nope.
it not until later?
No, not until later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's intentional.
yeah. This is the strangest part of the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because effectively she's a Black Widow serial killer style character, which kind of then repeats to a certain degree as an echo with Kim Basinger, you know?
But they don't even make it that explicit that she is the person who had murdered these other men, because they don't reveal the silver
Mhm.
that he had a silver bullet inside of him until the end of the movie. So it's really hard to put all these pieces together, and all we know is that he gets shot and then it's 16 years later.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely strange.
So that part, in and of itself, that part is, and maybe it's just because I've watched the movie a bunch as a kid, but story-wise, that's clear to me. I understand that she has some sort of fascination with killing elite athletes, and I think they really kind of, the moment that he strikes the Joe Don Baker Babe Ruth character out, and her
Yeah,
eyes
she's-
go from him to him. You know, she goes
Right.
from
She's clearly
the
titillated.
Whammer to Roy Hobbs. It's clear, okay, she has a fascination with, we don't know that she's going to kill him, but that she has a fascination with the best of the best. Who's the best? And she asks a bunch of questions of the Robert Duvall character. Is he the best? Is he the best? And we see the moment where she decides, okay, I'm going to make this guy a part of my life. And so, when she kills him, that all congeals in a way that makes sense. What doesn't make sense to me is, I think he seems to have this Achilles heel, or needs this Achilles heel of something with women, something with kind of not doing the right thing with women, or being tempted by bad girls, or but if you look at his behavior with Harriet Bird is the Barbara Hershey character, he's super innocent. Like, he actually never says anything like, or intimates like, yeah, I'm into this. He actually seems kind of confused, frankly, like, oh, you want me to come to your room? Oh, all right. And he just kind of shows like, hey, here I am. Like,
Yeah, I think he was expecting like a foot massage.
Yeah.
Maybe so. Yeah. And so that doesn't, so like when that comes back up with the Memo character, the Kim Basinger character later on, it doesn't feel like, oh man, it just doesn't feel like a good enough reason for that character to give up his dream of being the best baseball player there ever was, to kind of slum it with the Kim Basinger character again. It's like, I don't see how this is his Achilles heel. It didn't play that way earlier. So that is my big issue with just like, who is he and also, what did he do for those 16 years? Like, that's the the other big thing. Like,
question. And like, he just completely forgets about Glenn Close. I mean, it seems like, so yeah, he gets shot, and then like, we cut to 16 years later, and he is showing up at a ball field where the adorable Wilford Brimley is like lamenting that he did not become a farmer. And he is so cute in this movie and so funny.
God. Yeah. And paired with Richard Farnsworth too.
Oh,
I mean,
the
oh
two
my
of
God.
So good.
Yeah.
Are just a dream come true, and they want nothing to do with old ass Robert Redford, who's like, I'm going to be on your ball team. And they're like, to hell you are. Get out of here. You're an old guy. And they like, there's something to do with like, he's already been signed. It's too late. They have to pay him and he's on the team, but they at first choose to just bench him and pretend he's not there, even though they are not a good baseball team and should probably at this point try whatever they can get their hands on, including old guys.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough. But he's been sent to the team because it's revealed that the scout is in on this. Their chief scout is in on this plot run by the team's owner co-owner to tank the team a la Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And because then they can buy the Wilford Brimley character Pop out of his share of the team if they don't win the pennant. If they don't if they're not the best team in the league.
Which is like at
It's a
this
lot.
point too much plot.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's a who, the judge, who, what, Pop, and the ownership and the blah blah blah. It's like it's a lot to add into the ingredients of this movie, and like I knew that the judge was a different man and a different character than the bookie who we eventually meet, but they're so much the same that I was like, this could have been one guy.
It could have been one guy for sure.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yeah, the cadre became the cadre of villains.
Yeah.
You know?
Who all want to just own more of the baseball team and are quite comfortable and open about cheating to make that happen. Like they're not sneaky at all.
I think it's a good, that should have consolidated into one character because it's two different things. So Gus, the bookie, he's just trying to make money off of betting against the Knights, the New York Knights, and against him. Whereas the judge, who's the co-owner, wants them to be bad so he can maintain full ownership and then possibly eventually sell the team and get all the money for selling the team. So It's just two different things. It's just two totally different things, but they're working together.
And they're both in league with Kim Basinger.
And right. Who's also Wilford Brimley, Pop's niece, apparently.
And is like and is also dating Bump, who is a baby Michael Madsen, who we learn later is on the take.
Yeah.
And
right.
Then,
trying to get, and then eventually starts dating Roy Hobbs, Robert Redford, and trying to get him to be on the take.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's a salad of plot.
It's a lot. But eventually they do, so they're not letting him play. They're losing. They're not a good baseballing team. And so they keep hearing, they have to, every time they lose, it seems, they have to hear a lecture from a little man who tells them that losing is like syphilis. And if one of them catches it, they'll all catch it. I'm not sure that's helpful for sports, but
he's a sports psychologist, and maybe that art had not really evolved yet.
It had not. He was too ahead of his time. And so finally Roy Hobbs gets fed up and he like stomps out of there, and like just after a real quick like chat with Wilford Brimley, he's like, I came here to play ball, and Wilford Brimley's like, well, I didn't agree to that. And then he's like, well, too bad. And then the next day it's like, well, why don't you go ahead and play?
Have you thought about doing this as like a one-person show, Chrissy? The entire film? Because
the entire thing.
Just saying.
I should. I really have a nice hat. I could wear it when I'm being the Kim Basinger character. And of course, like, it turns out he's really good at baseball. Like, even though he's old and, injured or whatever, he's really good at baseball.
Yeah, he's magically good at baseball.
Magically good, so much so that his magic is to break stuff when he is playing baseball extra good. Like, he breaks a ball, he breaks a sign, he breaks a clock, he breaks the lights. Like, that's how you know he's good at it.
He also is so good that when he's coming up as a prospect, he's a pitcher. We know nothing about him as a hitter. He is just the best pitcher ever to have existed. When he resurfaces 16 years later, after who knows what kind of practice, he is the best hitter we have ever seen, which is a huge leap.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's just like, that's why I kept being like, magic. This is magic. This is, magical realism. And at some point, we're going to learn who has the magic or from whence the magic comes. Is it, and I'm like, okay, is it the bat? Is it the lightning of the bat? Like, he was blessed
Well,
by the gods?
That's the thing that we think about. And so, to skip way ahead, when the bat breaks, is he able to continue his magic,
Yes, because he made another bat with the chubby little bat boy. He's like, oh my God, this is possibly my favorite moment in the movie, when the little kid's like, I want a bat like that. And he's like, let's make one together. Oh my God, I died.
So yeah, it's interesting because we only saw him as a pitcher. And when he returns 16 years later, we never see him pitch except for once. And then we realize that is like something he can't do anymore because of his injury. He pitches and then clutches his side. Even though he did a fantastic job, he can't do that anymore.
No. There's a whole lot of montage in this movie. There's like just a plethora of montages. We get suddenly all the team is wearing little lightning bolt patches, like out of solidarity with him, kind of, and like finally they like the old man. They're winning. He goes to talk to the judge. There's all of that business of like the team and the pops and the ownership and blah blah blah, and that's when he starts hooking up with Kim Basinger. Right, when they're on a real winning streak.
Yeah. And then she becomes the magical bad luck boner.
Yeah, getting laid on the reg is really not good for his baseball.
No. Yeah, his magical hot streak and the Knight's magical hot streak it vanishes as soon as he's getting laid.
Which again, I'm like, is that really his? I don't know. Like, is that he's so driven to be the best there ever was. He says it over and over and over again.
And he's like granite. Anytime anyone tries to convince him of anything, he will not bend. And then this, there's so much in this movie that discusses luck.
Oh yeah.
You've got people gambling on everything, betting on all sorts of things, people on the side. And then then our good guy doesn't want to participate in that, but yet so much of his presence in the team changes their fortune, and then him getting involved in the wrong people reverses that fortune. Yeah, there's so much.
I mean, the Chrissy, you mentioned the lightning bolt patches that they put on. It's like it's superstition, right? They're just like, oh, this guy who came out of nowhere with a lightning bolt on his bat seems to be good luck. We're going to put lightning bolt patches on our uniforms for good luck.
It must be the bolt.
Yeah, there you go. And it's the other thing is it's luck, and it's also just the way the story is told. Everything is all or nothing. Everything is a home run or a strikeout. There's no singles. There's no walks. It's like it's a home run or a strikeout, and there is nothing else. And I feel like that continues throughout thematically in so many ways. But like somehow, to Nathan's point, he is not picking up on the fact that the Kim Basinger character Memo, who he doesn't seem to like even all that much,
No.
is just bad luck. She's just,
She's
that's her job.
like, the fact that she is using him could not be more telegraphed in every single way. And she's not even that secretive about it. She is very open about, like, well, I'm also going to be dating this Gus guy because he has money. And yeah, Bump was fine, but he's dead now, so let's not worry about it. And like, why don't you take the money and let's run? Like, she's not all that, she's not, doesn't seem like she's trying that hard
No,
to hide who and what she is. She's kind of
nope.
owning it. And God, is she gorgeous. This movie is just full
Oh
of
yeah,
like
for sure.
beautiful
Yeah.
women who look so perfect in their 40s costumes. I'm just like, dang. So then we get Glenn Close again. Like, we've forgotten about Glenn Close, and then he's losing. And then she comes to see him and stands up in the crowd and is literally glowing in a halo of like her like gauzy hat being sunlit from behind. She looks like a drawing of an angel. And all he has to do is like sense her presence and he is good at baseball again. Which, like, to me, then at that point, I was like, she's an angel or something. There's some sort of end. There's some sort of thing we're going to learn at the end that she somehow has this magic or is providing this magic. And no, she's just a regular human.
Yeah, and we have to talk that the cinematography in this movie is so good,
Mhm.
and the music is so good.
Yeah.
It's like the top of the top. Like the cinematography, it was actually nominated for an Oscar. Caleb Deschanel, father of Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, a legendary cinematographer. This is I feel like shots from this movie are used all the time in like Oscar montages, even though it never won.
Mm-hmm. But it is beautifully made and beautifully
Yeah.
lit and beautifully shot and well acted, and the costumes are amazing. And
Yeah, and the score is so good, and it's Randy Newman, who who most people know by singing his trademark
You Got a
voice
Friend
in
in
like
Me.
in Toy Story movies and things like that. But he just, oh man, I was gonna use the metaphor, knock it out of the park, even if this wasn't a baseball movie. It's so good. The
I
score
think
is so good.
the score is like it's so versatile too. It's just like it's like subtle and homey in moments, and then it's like, oh, you need a 1930s ragtimey fit. Like, here we go. Like, it's, I mean, and he's every, no, there's, as far as I know, I mean, other than maybe some incidental music here and there, like it's all him. Like, there's like no, like none of the, like, there's no like transition music that comes from elsewhere or anything like that. But it's just, yeah, he's, I may swing back to Randy Newman at the end segment.
Ooh,
But
okay.
it's a really, really special score. In fact, I owned the score on. I had very few movie scores as a high schooler, but I did own this one and listened to it regularly.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's great.
That is such a like young filmmaker-y thing to do. Like, that should be the sign. Like, do you have movie scores in your music collection as a teen? Well, guess what, Sonny? You're a filmmaker.
If I had if I had another one, I don't know what it was. That's the only one that I remember having, actually. So,
Really?
yeah.
I had Raiders Lost Ark and Star Wars, and then I also had, I think, a number of Disney ones like Peter Pan and Fox the
Ooh.
Hound.
Oh, fun.
I had an album of Tim Burton film scores, and Edward Scissorhands was my favorite.
Yeah.
And I also had the Braveheart film score. And I just listened to it. like
so
a
awesome.
like
That
a
one was so good. Yeah,
weirdo.
that one was so good.
Just
I
getting
had that
ready,
one
just
too.
getting ready in the morning. Just
And listening to
Mhm.
the Braveheart like soundtrack. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So he finds Glenn Close finds him again, and then all of a sudden he sort of tells her his story. There's been this whole other thing going on with Robert Duvall where everybody's like, we got to find out his story. We got to find out where this guy's from. He's a mystery. And like as an audience person, I'm like, oh, well, they're going to find out he got shot. Why is that bad? Like, they're going to find out he was injured. Okay. Um, Later, it's revealed that, like, Barbara Hershey's suicide might be able to be twisted to look like
Yeah.
there was.
At the worst, it's a very it's like here you've got someone who has now become sort of this American hero looked up by kids, and that there was like some like a possible murder suicide event
Mm-hmm.
that would completely tarnish him in a
In like
time
a
of
negligee, too. Like, she was wearing like a
right.
sexy death
Right.
bride
Look at
outfit.
she's half dressed. You can see two of her ankles.
And he was fully clothed and also the one who was shot. So like just
Mhm.
doing it's a little confusing, right? Doing the math on it, it's like, yeah, but anybody who thinks about it for 2 seconds would see that he's not the one who did the murder. He's the one who was shot.
Uh-huh.
Well, except I
couldn't
do
have done
think
the
that's
murder.
like realistic in sort of a dark way, like the whole Fatty Arbuckle thing of like just the appearance of impropriety was enough to get you like literally blacklisted
Yeah.
in the 30s, I guess. So
Yep,
not
true.
that they mention that at all. It's just this thing where he doesn't want anyone to know. But he does tell Glenn Close, like, I spent years in the hospital, and she's like, well, were you in Chicago? Like, where were you? And he's like, I don't know, in a hospital. And then I just dicked around for 14 years. Doing what? I need to know more.
He was this he kind of like was telling Glenn Close what he was up to.
Kind of, I
And then
think.
it fades off. Yeah.
So can I add they're in a tunnel as they're talking about this, and it's like real echoey, and you can't totally make out all the words that clearly. Some of this I rewatched this because I really think like that's, to me, this is the central unanswered question is like, what did he do for those 16 years? Like what's like what like there that seems to be what the movie is wanting us to ask. And finally he starts telling her this, and I'm like, okay, here we go. He's gonna divulge some stuff. We can half hear what he's saying because of the echo and the sound mix. And then it just sort of trails off at the point where he gets to the stuff that we don't know yet.
Right. It's
like, we knew all this already. We knew he was shot. We knew
I was a rodeo clown, and then I was a taste tester for the King of France, and then I was
apparently, so in the book, which I've not read, but apparently in the book, Max, the Robert Duvall character, does discover a picture of him as a clown at some point, which I'm very curious about. It does make me want to read the book.
Well, that's the Odysseus bit, right? Is the story of Odysseus is like him, his trials to return home to his wife and child.
And then this twist is that he doesn't even know. He thinks that returning home is to baseball.
Right. To his wife, baseball.
Right.
So yeah, so we do get the reveal that like Glenn Close has a son. And like at first they're like, neither of us is going to say anything. I have a son. Don't ask too many questions. His dad lives in New York. And, I don't know why I came to just find you out of the blue all of a sudden, except for that my son needs a father.
Big time. So you're doing well financially, I hear.
Yeah. So, but
not being a clown anymore, I hear.
She's done quite well for herself as a single mother in the 20s and 30s.
Right, who's got an apartment in Chicago, but yet still owns the farm.
But is like doing great. Like she's doing great.
Yeah.
But of course, we don't know exactly what she's doing.
That's right.
That's true.
I think the movie does have some of the female characters I feel like are not super well lived in, despite great performances. I think just writing wise, it's like, what do we know about her other than the fact that they had a son that he doesn't know about, and it's been a long time since they've seen each other. Like,
and she looks great in a hat.
And to be honest, though, we really don't know much about any character in this movie.
It's true.
Like okay, so who is the second most important male character after
Pops.
Robert Redford? It's either Pops or Robert Duvall, and we don't know really anything about them either.
No, good point.
It definitely keeps us. This movie keeps us in terms of their function, their mythological function. I feel like it is purposeful that his vanishing is a mystery, because everyone else goes like, well, where did he come from? What happened?
Yeah.
The movie doesn't want us to know what he was up to, other than being probably a sad sack, who took all this time to kind of to not only heal, but to rediscover his I guess not love of baseball, but maybe his confidence in being able to play it.
You guys talked about the cinematography earlier, and I think that what is really special and amazing about it is that it highlights that mystery. It's everything's backlit. If anybody's face has light on it, it is a special occasion. Like everything it's just heavy ratios, like tons of shadow, little streaks of light. I mean, Nathan, you were talking about like how everybody's mysterious. There's, like so little is revealed, and the light in this movie does exactly that. It matches it perfectly.
So that just reminded me of the moment where he does go into the judge's office, and the judge is like, "Forgive the darkness. I was afraid of the dark, and now I'm so fucking brave that I have to have darkness all the time, even though it's rude to my guests." I just thought that part was so bizarre. And then at the end, like, to be a dick, Robert Redford like turns on the desk lamp,
flips on the fluorescence at the end. God damn it!
So good. Such an odd moment of comedy in this movie. So he meets Glenn Close. They like chitty chat. Like there's a moment where it's like, oh, he does know that's like obviously his son, and he does know he's gonna stay and insist on meeting the boy. Nope. He's kicking around the front yard and off he goes. He goes back to a world where Kim Basinger is trying so hard to like win him back over, and then she just like figures he's not falling for it and poisons him.
Maybe
you don't think so?
Right.
I don't. I'm on the fence about that. I mean, there's the moment where she gives him she puts some morsel of something in his mouth at a party, right. And then an hour later he starts to feel pain in his side. But when he's in the hospital, it's revealed that, oh, that's the lining of your stomach has been deteriorating over years, and we found this silver bullet in there that's been doing it. And so I wasn't 100% sure. I was like, was he there? Because did he get poisoned and it just coincidentally it led to them discovering that the real issue?
That was my read. That was my read.
My read was that Robert Redford was 48 when he made this movie, or 47.
He was 47.
Eat food that rich casually, there's going to be consequences. I mean, at this point, like, he's got to be concerned about cholesterol,
You got to watch out for sodium. I definitely thought that she had poisoned him, because like the moment comes right before where one of the two bad guys is like, well, either way, we're doing our plan. And then she like looks at him so sadly. But I also was like, wait a minute. He was in the hospital for 2 years after he got shot and no one took the bullet out?
Right. Yeah.
It's been
No, that's
in
a good.
there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm inclined to. There's so much pointing to she poisoned him, so I'm. That was my
Yeah.
recollection of it going in for sure. I'm inclined to think that that's what they were trying to do, but I guess I would have appreciated a line from the doctor that's like, "Well, we found this poison in your system, but then also, we also happen to stumble on this bullet, which has created this irreversible damage." It's just not explained clearly enough because it's
I guess with the ambiguity of like 40s medical technology and knowledge, it's tough to it's like it's hard to figure out exactly what it was, because I also know that like always removing the bullet is also a bit of a Hollywood trope. Like you don't necessarily always remove the bullet from a bullet wound. I believe.
Well, this guy definitely makes it sound like it was just rolling around in his stomach. Like it was just rattling around in there. If you shook him, you'd have heard it bang against the sides of Robert Redford. Like for all the like mystery, the doctor's like, oh, well, here's the one thing we do know. If you play baseball, your stomach will explode. That's what we do know. We don't. That's the one.
He says
fact
it. He does say it pretty much that
you
direct.
could take to the bank. And then there's a lot. So this is what I mean about the movie being kind of boring, is that then there's a lot of hemming and hawing.
Look, this is the 40s. We don't know much, but here's the one thing we do know.
You will explode if you ever pick up a baseball bat again.
And it's going to be gross.
Well, yeah, and then a lot of mystery surrounds the injury still, but like, okay, hemming and hawing. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Is he not going to play because they're bribing him, or is he not going to play because he truly is injured?
And this is a 1-game playoff for the pennant. So they've lost 3 games in a row while he's been out with his poisoning.
Right. He wakes up in a maternity ward because it was the
which is a great bit. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and when they say it's like, oh, where am I? Oh, you're in a maternity ward, and then there's a beat. We lost 3 when you were out, and they're meaning games, but I thought babies.
Oh no!
Oh.
There's also a moment where they're talking. The opposite coach of the opposing team is sort of like egging the bad pitcher in to like play a little dirty, and he's like, this guy just got out of a girls' hospital, you gonna let him beat you? I thought that was pretty cute. Lo and behold, he is gonna play, and he's not doing so good. He like bleeds out of like he's bleeding, but from what? From the 17-year-old bullet wound? Why is he bleeding?
He keeps scratching. He's not supposed to scratch.
Okay. But he's not doing a good job until Glenn Close is like, give him this note, let him know that it is his son.
Yeah, which I would have found very distracting and not like...
Yeah, maybe not great timing, but I mean, nothing else was working. I think, we saw him swing and miss at like 11 pitches up until that moment. So
that's fair. Yeah.
He was like, screw it. What else can go wrong? Let's just, let's send this note down.
Mm-hmm.
And so he does. So then he's like, he gets his powers back, but he breaks Wonder Boy, the bat.
Yeah. So the question is whether or not the magic bat was the source of the magic.
And maybe it's just the bat you make, because the adorable little guy, the little Batman, is like, here's the one we made together. Your power now is fatherhood, and you've sort of been a father to me. We built this together, so here's your power.
Which was a weird speech to give him, but it does explain a lot. So I guess it's just only homemade bats that are magical that give him the
I
magic.
think it's like an innocence versus versus
Mm.
not innocence thing, or or
Innocence of young
purity
boys.
versus purity versus impurity, or and so Glenn Close, the farm, the bat,
Yeah.
those things are innocence, and Memo and trains and
Gamblers with
gamblers,
Judges.
and those things are impure and not innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do a great lead up of like, okay, so I mean, ultimately, like, there's only one more strike that needs to happen, and then he's out. But they do a great job of just building up the moment of bringing out a new pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
Like he hits a foul ball, which smashes the glass where Robert Duvall is preparing a sketch to slander him. You've
Which
got
I
the
love that all of their praise and criticism is accomplished through cartoon.
yes, and then you've got the bat that's broke, the Wonder Bat, and then it starts to get stormy, and then there's lightning, and then he's clutching his injury. It's starting to bleed, and the catcher is noticing, and then the cinematography is just amping it up, and the music is starting, and then you get his big victory as the music swells, and you get this fantastic visuals of the ball striking the lights and exploding constantly,
Yep.
just raking down
he
sparks.
hits one light, and these are like individual light bulbs. It hits one
Yeah.
light and it sets off a chain reaction where all the other light bulbs can't help but explode,
They want to be part
because
of it.
Yeah.
they just want to be in on it. Just part of the magic.
And then he wins, yay baseball. The bad guys are all
So sad.
so sad, except you think for a minute that Kim Basinger's gonna shoot him.
Right.
Uh,
Because she actually fires a gun near him.
right. And I'm just like, not again. But then bippity boppity boo, he's at home on the farm with his family now.
Yeah, which is maybe like the quickest resolution of a movie I'm sure there's something shorter, but it's literally only 4 shots.
But also like maybe he's dead though. Like maybe he's dead and that's his like heaven dream or something. Like maybe he did die and he just
I
Wow.
feel I feel like you can
his
make that
stomach
case for
exploded,
almost
Josh,
all
like the
all
guy
movies.
said.
I mean, he made it all the way around the bases, and it was just, I mean, it only exploded a little bit. Like, yes, there's blood, right? Which means that, yes, it did explode, but like, he's still, it's, I love I love that image, by the way, of like him, it happens a couple times, just him he hits the walk-off, the walk-off home run, makes it around the bases. It's raining, people are pouring out, and he's like, it's just him alone in the darkness, rounding the bases. I guess that's an earlier victory, but in this one, it's the fireworks coming from the lights, the chain reaction of the lights exploding, and it'd be so difficult to be backlit at night in a baseball stadium, but they find ways to do it a couple times.
Uh-huh.
It's I love it.
Yeah, and the music is just hitting its highest point at this point.
And it's great. Like what a good movie.
I feel like
I loved it.
we spent so much time talking about. I'm very happy to hear that, because I still love it too. But it's so hard not to just pick at its foibles, because it's so close to
There's
being.
some goofy shit.
Yeah, but it's just just the dialogue, the performances, the cinematography, the music. It's like it is sort of. It's so close to being a masterpiece. It's just. It's really just the script just has some weird ass shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it was all purposeful. Like these are choices that they made, to kind of make some things obscure or quote mythical or mysterious.
Okay, so but I agree that it's still a really good movie, and Robert Redford is just so great. I just love Robert Redford. he's
Yep.
so
Mhm.
he's so everybody in this movie is head to toe charming. uh I would watch a whole movie about Wilford Brimley and the two coaches. I would just want to know more about them. I would watch a whole series that's just about their adventures. They sing songs to each other, or Wilford Brimley
Or they
whistles.
actually run a farm. Yeah.
Yeah, they where he gets his farm. So how many silver bullets out of 10 silver bullets? No, because then 10 more would be bad,
You
right?
wish to be shot by. Yeah.
How many magical bats do you give The Natural? We'll start with Josh.
I will give it 8 of 10 magic bullets, Wonder Boys, or what was the third thing? What was our third possibility?
Weird Darren McGavin eyes.
Or how many lights do you knock out for out of 10 lights?
I'm going
How
8 out of 10. I think, I know we spent a lot of time talking about the shortcomings of the film, but the magic just really, it just
Mhm.
felt, I teared up a number of times in the movie. It just emotionally, it still does all of the stuff to me that it did when I was a kid. I'll say it holds up despite itself.
I agree.
Yeah.
What about you, Nathan?
So I'm going to agree. I'm going to be shot by Barbara Hershey 8.5 times.
Nice.
For some, I don't know where I come up with these numbers. I just feel it in my gut. It's the silver bullets rolling around in my gut.
There are
Or
8.5
poison.
silver bullets rolling around in there.
Or poison. Yeah, or poison.
I agree. I give it, but I'm going over both of your heads. I give it a 9. I love this movie. I thought it was
Wow.
great.
Ooh.
I thought it was boring in a cozy way. I like movies about sports, even if I don't like sports. And it was all just a really beautiful delight. And I was so curious about the magic that I was really, really on the edge of my seat trying to find out who had made a Crossroads deal. And so deep cut recommendations. I already mentioned mine. It's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Which also has a timeless 30s, 40s, appeal of costuming and a charming leading man. And it's the retelling of a myth in that setting. So that's mine.
For my deep cut recommendation, so I feel like baseball just makes the best sports movies. They make the best
It's true.
movies. It's because you're allowed to see individual triumph. The way that unlike, let's say, football, to where everyone is kind of covered in all in their outfits and helmets, and it's hard to have moments of individual triumph. I feel like the second best sports movie is boxing, and then maybe soccer. But
Okay.
so I guess what I'm saying is that my recommendation is going to be another sports movie, a soccer movie. I mean, the obvious recommendation is to see Field of Dreams, is just to be a big weepy mess and to miss your father and to watch 2 of these movies in a row. But maybe that's too much. So I'm going to say, in terms of sports movies, just in terms of my favorites, I'm going to go with an oddball choice of Shaolin's soccer.
I was gonna say, can I guess Shaolin soccer?
Right. I think everyone needs more Stephen Chow in their life.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Sports movie deep cut.
Yeah.
And what about for you, Josh?
And I have not seen it, so I will take your recommendation, Nathan,
Ooh,
and I will raise you.
Oh,
You're gonna like it. You're gonna like it a lot.
Awesome. I look forward to it. So I'm going to go with the early career of Randy Newman. So he's got a self-titled album that came out in the late 60s. He's been around for a while. And then he's got a couple 12 songs, and Sail Away. Sail Away is I think probably his best album. and Good Old Boys right after that. So that little chunk of 4 albums. And if I can quickly tell you this is the second time today I've had a chance to tell this Randy Newman story. I saw him a few years ago at the Hollywood Bowl, and they closed the first. They had an intermission in the middle of their set. It was him with a band, and at the end of the first set, they closed with "You've Got a Friend in Me," which you mentioned earlier, Chrissy, and this was clearly the song that his younger audience was there for. So there were parents with kids who were there. Oh, you got to. And as soon as they're done playing that song and heading into intermission, Randy Newman says, "All right, we'll be back in 20 minutes. We're gonna go shoot up."
That's what keeps it going.
That's Randy Newman in a nutshell right there. He's making the kids music, but he's just a cranky, funny old son of a bitch. So
that's hilarious. It's lovely having you, Josh.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to be here.
Definitely got to get you back again. Where can people go to support your arts and entertainment endeavors?
Yeah, so I and my creative partner Stephanie Lucas have a company called Limitrophe Films, and if you go to limitrophefilms.com, LIMITROPHEFILMS.com, you can keep track of what we're up to.
Thank you for spelling it. Nathan, you should also spell the word squishy, just in case people don't know where they can find all your artistic endeavors.
Yeah. As usual, they can go to SQUISHYSTUDIOS.
So catchy.
SquishyStudios.com.
And you can find me at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater The Place and NCT Phoenix online, as well as Most Excellent Chrissy. Please follow us on the Instagrams at Most Excellent Pod, and listen for me coming up on the Saturday Matinee podcast on True Story FM. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you find some magical bats in your life, and while you're out there in the world, remember to be excellent to each other. Don't get shot by Barbara Hershey, and party on.
Party on, dude.
Okay, that was so fun. Thanks, you guys.